It is the largest in Alaska. The state has abundant natural resources. Every year, one state in the United States. More than $50 billion, but this area was 150 years ago. At the time, Russia's. The Russian Empire in America. You're on the run, but you'll be surprised to know that Alaska. That's billions of dollars in revenue. Alaska to Russia for only $72 million. Sold again in the United States. The price per acre of land. It's only 2 cents today. The current price is 63 rupees per acre. Think about what it's like in Alaska today. Russia would be at the moment. American politics has changed the world. Or how much to Russia to put pressure on Canada? It would have been easier, and that's why it's called Alaska. The biggest mistake in the history of Russia. It was a country like Russia. Why did they make this mistake? The decision to sell more. You know what's amazing about America? They didn't even know it when they bought Alaska. Alaska's got a golden egg one day. It's going to be ducks even after the Alaska purchase. People all over the world laughed at America. Many of these images have been published in the media. The United States, $7 million, bought a piece of ice because in 1867 when the U.S. bought Alaska, they thought Alaska wasn't so profitable for them. So the question is why? America is covered in snow with so much money. Alaska was bought, so friends, I'm staying. Catch up with you in today's video. The biggest mistakes in Russian history. Let's talk about the Alaska sale. Be sure to watch the video at the end. Why did Russia sell Alaska? You got to understand it first. How to find out that Russia in Alaska? Because it was 200 years ago. If there were no satellites, there would be no Earth. How to get to Alaska from Russia? Let's find it out for you. Emperor of Russia in the 1800s. Tsar Peter the Great of Russia. Peter was one of the time Peter wanted to know what Russia's. You can see what's on the east side of the map. You can say that Russia is a. They have a large area of their own. Tucked away, but cross the sea. They didn't know there was anything there. The rest of Europe at this time. Conducted in various areas throughout the. And take possession of those places. Russia's size is so large. Despite Russia's economic. The search for oil had not yet begun. In Russia, due to the cold, there was no population in the east. Even today, it is the same. When they find a new place to use resources in their own economy. It may have been Peter in 1741. The great Danish sailor Vitus Bering. Vitus commissioned an expedition. Bering went out with the people at that time. What else is there in the east of Russia? But when it comes to finding out, reach the east coast of Russia. He couldn't go any further because it was very cold and windy. At this point, the expedition is canceled. It's the second time this year he began to walk across the sea. Arriving in Alaska, they don't see much resources. See a lot of sea otters, and this. Sea otters, but there was a big. Look at Russia's occupation of Alaska. A cheetah is a type of animal that has skin. Dresses made of Russian. It's very popular, and the Russians. It has been acknowledged by many. This is because Russia's cedars became extinct as a result of Alaska. Seagrass is a big one for the Russians. There were economic opportunities at the beginning. The Russians continued to sell these seatoros. But the problem is Alaska's cold. Alaska was so cold. It has a population of between 200 and 300 people. It wasn't the sea in the winter. As a result of the layer of snow falling on the commercial, ships couldn't come to Alaska. Alaska was also inhabited by a tribe they are called the Alad tribe. The Russians do a lot of violence here. For many years it was isolated. And then, when the Russians came to Alaska, through the body of the Russian, as a result of the spread of disease, the population, it is gradually decreasing. The Russians attacked them again. Once upon a time, there was a war between the Russians. The war was called in 1824, Battle of Sitka, but this tribe has no. The Russians had no better weapons. There was a large rifle nearby. The Aleut tribe lost this battle. The Russians are all over Alaska. They're taking over, but I dreamed of Alaska. Alaska's reason for not meeting. The weather wasn't too cold. It's cold and windy here. It's too long for anyone. It was a risk, but with time, Russia's advanced technology and living in Alaska with the opportunities. It was hard to do that because Alaska, far away from the main cities of Russia, and the weather has been great. The Russian government's many opportunities. Someone who lives in Alaska. I don't want Russia anymore. A great danger came in the middle of the 19th century. Moldova, Romania, and Bulgaria. Several regions of the Balkans, including the Crimea, Russia to take control of the country. At that time, many countries wanted, captured, and controlled the country. The territories occupied by Russia. These were the Ottoman territories of the empire, and most of the people there were. There are Muslims in Russia, speaking for the Christian population, and the Crimean War began, and the fate of Alaska with Russia in the war. The Crimean War changed everything. Russia has suffered a lot. They cost around 8 rupees lakh. Russians died in the war. The economy is collapsing, and the Ottomans fought against Russia. Britain and France to Russia. The economy has been badly hit. There are plenty of them to recover. I needed a lot of money, but it was so much. These areas are owned by Russia. I couldn't make any money, but it was fun. What do you know about Russia and the US? The relationship of the snake mongoose with America today. Russia, in the 1800s. There was no enmity between the two countries. Britain was the enemy. The enemy is not America's friend. It's a friendship between Russia. It's Russia in the Crimea. Russia lost a lot of wars. On the other hand, the soldier died. A large area such as Alaska. How much it costs to care for. That's a huge burden for Russia. Stand in this place. Russia has made a mistake. The decision to sell Alaska. Another one to sell in Alaska. Britain's fear of the Crimean War. Britain was against Russia. Russia thinks that Alaska is their origin. So far away from the UK. Invade Alaska at any time. Lost the war with Britain. If they lose to Alaska. So it's better for people to get upset. Alaska is sold out, but the question is whether Alaska's. I would have to sell to Russia. Why don't you sell Alaska? At this time, many parts of Canada. I've told you before, and Britain was the common enemy of Russia. Selling Alaska to the US. It was all a smart thing. The United States in 1867. The conversation with Russia began. The Civil War was going on in America. This was initially proposed by Russia. It's not important, but after the end of the American Civil War, the then Minister of Foreign Affairs, William Seward, on the proposal of Russia, agree on Alaska's price at first. It was $1 million, but after negotiations on March 30th, 1867, just $7 million in the morning, Alaska was purchased from Russia. United States on October 18th. Alaska was officially ceded. Russia, but also the United States. But Alaska was indifferent. Since the Alaska Purchase. Army, Navy, or Department of the Treasury. Or sometimes in Alaska. Russia did not exist at that time. The Alaska Purchase from the United States. Many inside thought Seward was stupid. But in spite of all this, in 1896, something happened that completely changed the fate of Alaska. Alaska was first settled in 1896 and found the largest gold mine. America, and then everyone will understand that didn't do anything stupid, but mine gold at the price of water. I've also found the second. Alaska during World War I. It's naturally very important. Played a role, and then in 1956, January 3rd, Alaska, United States. The 49th state of the United States. Recognized, and for many years, the 5 largest oil producers in the United States. Alaska is one of the states. The U.S. Energy Information Administration. According to the report, in early 2021, Alaska's oil reserves were 2.5 billion barrels in the United States. 4th place in 1988. 2 million people in Alaska every day. Barrel oil was also produced. U.S. zinc production in Alaska. Ahead of the rest of the states. You'd be surprised to know that the U.S. The largest gold production is in Alaska. 50% of the U.S. Marine. Alaska is a food supply. Think it's all natural. America has the resources, found after the Alaska Purchase. If they couldn't find it, why did the U.S. buy Alaska? Because at that time, Alaska was there was nothing but snow. But there is a political reason behind it. Let me tell you this. America doesn't do anything for nothing. Behind the Alaska Purchase, their goal was to reach the Pacific Ocean. Calm at the time of establishing authority. Britain was the only empire in the world. The Pacific Ocean after the Alaska Purchase. The United States to establish its own. It can also be natural beauty. Alaska for tourists from all over the world. America is a favorite destination. I wanted to use this opportunity in the future, as well as Alaska's fish wealth. America's eyes were on this region. Trade relations with China and Japan. This was an opportunity to increase. Alaska is America's opportunity. Agreed to buy the land and the rest. They can be said to be above. After Alaska was declared a state, the U.S. military in Alaska, as an important area of, made enemies with the U.S. because it's been Russia for a long time. The cause of the pain is, the distance from Russia to Alaska is only 82 kilometers, and these are the two continents. The place in between is called the Bering Method. It's but that Vitus Bering, the name of the man who discovered Alaska. In accordance with Alaska's, the ancient people were the Russians, as did the Americans. They were ignored by Russia. White people lived in Alaska. They have American citizenship, but they did not give citizenship to the Aleutes. Think about the areas that were once, had become refugees, but the Aleuts were fighting for their rights, and the Aleut tribes until 1924. The U.S. government grants citizenship, but ultimately, I'll tell you one thing, if you could get through this years, the equation of world politics in the day. That's why sometimes decisions change. You have to think before you take it. Otherwise, it would be like Russia. Do you know why I told you about the people of Russia are still selling? Once upon a time, a Russian. The citizen made direct contact with Putin. Russia has never been to Alaska. Putin will be able to hold his own again. What are we going to do with Alaska? It's a cold and dry place. Putin understands this pain. Do you know what it means to go back to Alaska? What do you think about World War III? What is the sale of Alaska in the history of Russia? Your opinion in the comment box is the biggest mistake. Be sure to tell me.